What's up, everybody? Today on Dirt Lifestyle, we're going to cover probably the biggest issue you will face if you're going to stretch the wheelbase of your Jeep Wrangler, and that is the fuel tank. For those of you who don't know, the fuel tank placement is horrible because if you want to stretch the rear axle, it goes right into where the fuel tank is, and this gives you the problem where you've got to choose, well, where am I going to move the fuel tank, or am I going to change the shape of the fuel tank, or can I shrink the fuel tank? There's a bunch of different options out there, and today we're going to go through them all. The only important bit of information that I'm not going to cover in this video is going to be your fuel tank sending unit. In my case, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about a gauge. I have a bunch of different ideas. So I do have a sending unit, but you're not going to see me install it in this video. That's going to be a different video. As you can see, we are clearly out of room behind this axle. Just enough room for maybe a custom fuel tank or something along those lines, but definitely not the factory fuel tank. In my opinion, we have three primary ways that we can solve this fuel tank problem. The first option is gonna be aftermarket fuel tanks. So if you look around, you'll find a company called GenRight. That's actually what I had in here before. I had one of their stretch tanks. They have a few different models available, and it was insane expensive. So I'm not gonna spend that money twice. I sold that tank already to a buddy who needed it, but it would not accommodate the amount of stretch that I'm giving it now. There is a tank they make called an Alien tank. It's like an 11-gallon tank that would fit for this, and it would fit the factory TJ fuel sender and all that other stuff. It's just like, it's like $1,300 now or something around there that it would cost me to get a new tank, and I'm just not willing to do that. Our second option is to take a fuel cell and put it behind the back seat. A lot of people do this. I totally understand why they do it, but it's not for me. As you can see, I have tools, I've got bearings, I've got, a jack, I've got all kinds of stuff back here, and I don't want to have to find a new home for this. For a fuel cell. Plus, I'm toying with the idea of putting a spare tire back here and then figuring out how to pack this stuff around the spare tire. So there definitely is not going to be any room for a fuel cell back here for me. The third option is to modify or build something yourself. And my options are a little bit broader than a lot of people's because of something that I have located under the hood here. If you're new to the channel or new to my builds, then you probably don't know this has a 4-cylinder Volkswagen turbo diesel in it. And when I ran the Rubicon last summer, between 2 days of wheeling and driving back over Donner Pass, which is like 7,000 feet or some crazy shit, I used like 2.9 gallons of fuel for the whole trip. So I don't need a very big fuel tank. Well, that's kind of cool, right? So I can buy something small, I can modify it, and that's what we're gonna do. This cute little tank is a 7-gallon fuel cell. If you do the math, it took me 2.9 gallons to do the Rubicon. I could do the Rubicon twice with this and still have a gallon left over to go find fuel. So I can't imagine a scenario where I will wheel the Rubicon, drive over the pass, wheel it again, drive over the pass again to use the 6 gallons and then have that gallon left over to find more fuel. But because my engine is so fuel efficient, I have options like this, and I will be able to fit this underneath the Jeep, and I believe I've figured out a good location for it. Hopefully you guys will be able to see this okay, but I plan on stuffing this up in place of the old tank, and because it's so small, I'm gaining a whole bunch of clearance, so my departure angle is going to increase, which is a huge bonus. And then for like 15 bucks on Amazon, I got this little filler cap, which I plan on welding right there. When I was trying to come up with a solution for the fuel problem, the problem that everybody has when they stretch one of these, I liked the idea of taking an existing fuel cell and just modifying it to work for what I need. And when I came across this, it seemed perfect. The price was right. I want to say it was like 140 or 150 bucks, somewhere in that ballpark, from a company online called like Speedway Motors or something. And they're not a sponsor or anything like that. They make a lot of go fast parts and aftermarket universal stuff just like this. And when I saw the filler cap, I thought, ooh, that could make a good sump. So in the diesel world, sumps are very popular because if you pull fuel off the bottom of your tank, a lot less chance you'll get air in the fuel, and air in your fuel is a big problem in the diesel world. So the plan is I'm gonna make a plate that I'm gonna weld on the top of this and cap it off. Then I'm going to attach a weld-on bung onto the side of it and use some custom fittings that I got from a company called AirDog. They make a pump that filters out water, it filters out particulates, and it filters out air. It's a pretty slick setup, and I have it in a couple of my diesel rigs. So I've came in contact with a guy down at AirDog named Kevin, told him what I needed, he sent me these fittings. Thank you, Kevin. Really appreciate it. So I guess in a way, they're kind of an unofficial sponsor of this episode. With this tank, we're gonna need to attach 4 fittings. We're gonna have supply down here low. We're gonna have a return somewhere up high, and then we're gonna have a air return somewhere up high. We're also gonna need to locate a vent, and I think what we're gonna do is locate a vent. So I'm gonna weld a bung in the side of the filler up here, and then we'll have a nice high location to vent out any sort of negative or positive pressure. I wanna be super clear. This is not a how to TIG weld aluminum video. I suck at TIG welding aluminum. I just started playing with this like weeks ago. So all of my experience up to this point has been with a spool gun, and I'm pretty decent with a spool gun actually. But with a TIG torch welding thin aluminum, it is a very big challenge and it's a very difficult undertaking. I think that I've gotten good enough in the last few weeks that I can weld this solid. I can weld it and have no leaks. Hopefully I don't just destroy the tank and blow through it, but we'll find out. And I think that it's gonna be okay. I just don't think it's gonna look great. I don't think that you're gonna be seeing any of my TIG welding welds on weld porn anytime soon. I got everything welded up. Not beautifully, but welded up. When I inspect all these welds, they look like there's no pinholes or anything like that. I am gonna be testing this. I'm gonna pressure test it just to make sure I've got no leaks. And now I'm gonna actually try to mount it to the Jeep. This universal tank came with some universal brackets. Pretty cool. And I think they're gonna work for our situation. The plan is to slide one onto here, kind of estimate one of the holes, drill it from underneath, come up top, use the other plate to kind of measure over, drill down, try to bolt up one side, and then see where I need to mount the other side. Perfect. I'm liking this. Pretty much turned out exactly how I imagined it will. It's very loose because I didn't tighten anything down. This is kind of a test fit, if anything. I just wanted to get it up in there just to make sure that everything's gonna clear where I want it to. I would like to protect our brand new fuel tank with a brand new skid plate. And of course, I'm gonna be using aluminum. I've got some 1/4 inch aluminum right here that we're gonna use for the skid plate. And then this is like a 3/8 kind of weird C-channel shape that I want to weld to the rear bumper to make it really solid. And then we're going to tap and thread this to put some bolts through to basically attach our skid plate to. You're gonna have a difficult time seeing this because of the reflection, and I apologize for that. We're gonna go through this real quick. I'm gonna show you exactly what I've laid out here. This space right here represents the factory frame rail. You can see this on this side, this on that side. This void inside is gonna be what is in between the frame rails, and this hole here and this hole here are both like welded nutserts that are on the frame rail itself. So I want to take advantage of those and use those as a point to mount this plate. These three right here are going to be eliminated, and this is going to end up getting folded up inside the frame rail, and we're going to put a hole somewhere right around here so we can put a bolt through the front to bolt it in the front and the back of the skid plate. The next thing we're gonna do is put a fold right here, but not here. And the way we're gonna do that is I cut some angle iron for our lower die, and I made it to where it's not full width. We took out all the fingers but one. I'm gonna slide this lower die over in order to give us a space that's not gonna get bent over here on the left side. And we're gonna center everything on this finger. I made a boo-boo on this skid plate. We need to talk about it. The way that I had this in the press brake, I thought would clear, but I didn't have tall enough angle iron to make this clear all the way. I saw it start to bend just a little bit, but I was expecting some deflection. I had zero deflection because it's aluminum. You don't really get any deflection from aluminum. So I stopped the bend. You can see this isn't a complete 90. You know, these things happen. This is part of being a fabricator, is figuring out how to fix what you mess up. The plan is I'm gonna cut this off. It's not necessary anyway. I do have a bunch of bolts that are gonna be going into the bumper itself. So this guy and this guy are both coming off, and then I'll be able to do a nice clean 90-degree bend right here and a clean 90-degree bend right here. The next couple things I want to work on is going to be building the plate that this mounts to that's on the back side of the frame. I also need to cut somewhere in here, I believe. I'm going to have to go over to the vehicle and mark it, but there's that sump that we made that's going to hang down right here. So we're going to need to trim it out, which I didn't even think about it when I was putting this here, but either way, this is going to go, and then we're going to have to custom bend some sort of a little skid plate for that sump that we can weld onto the bottom of our plate. As you can see, I already pulled the bumper off the back of the Jeep. It's going to sit like this, and then we're going to weld this really rigid piece of aluminum to the bottom of it, and then we are going to drill and tap the bottom of this so we can bolt our skid plate to this. So we're basically making our rear bumper more rigid, and we're going to be using it as a nice solid mounting point for the rear skid plate. Let my machine cool down a little bit and let the material cool down a little bit, but we've got something that is definitely going to hold together. I've got a bunch of incremental welds on the back and the front of this. Woo, the thing is still really hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back through and finish welding these little gaps in between later, but right now this is ready to at least mount on the Jeep and start doing some fab. There is something else I thought about while I was welding, and that is a little bit of clearance for that rear axle. I think it's going to clear without it, but I'm going to cut just a little chunk out of here, and then whenever I weld that rim across the edge, I'll just kind of bend the rim around and weld it, and might give it a more rigid shape anyway. So we marked a hole on the Jeep, and now we drilled a hole on the bumper, and this thing is ready for a riv nut. So this little riv nut is gonna get pushed into there. You know, this isn't a riv nut tool, this is a homemade little jammy. I did order a riv nut tool, it just hasn't gotten here yet. And what this does is it expands the back side of that riv nut into the hole that you've drilled, and it makes it to where you have threads wherever the hell you want them. It's pretty sweet. We're gonna start by drilling the one hole, we're gonna put the riv nut in there, and then we're gonna bolt this back onto the Jeep. We're gonna put the bolt into that one hole, and then whenever I mark and drill these other holes, they're all gonna be uniform because nothing's gonna shift around on us as we're working. I've only got one bolt holding that plate on, but we can actually see how much clearance we gained. Other TJ owners, you know my pain, man. That fuel tank hangs down really far. Even a high clearance one like I just got. This is flush with the bottom of the frame rails. That's incredible. So I do need to make a drop down section here to protect the sump. To be honest with you, because of how big the rear tires are, you know, there's hard to get some perspective in the camera, but the rear tire is actually gonna be past the rear bumper. And this is gonna be, you know, killer departure angle. So I don't think if we look down here in a couple of years, we're gonna see any scratches or dings from rocks or anything, but if anything did get up underneath there, it is protected. I'm gonna add a hole on the inside here and a hole on the inside over there, and I'm gonna use some self-tapping bolts to anchor the front portion of this skid plate in as well. Perfect. I like it. Sometimes you can just guess the bend and it works out the way you want it to. check that out. I just have one bolt holding it in right now, but you can see where this is going. I'm out of time on this video, so I'm done bolting things in for this weekend. This took me about 3 weekends to weld and cut and do the tank and the skid plates, so I'm out of time. I've got to go start editing this so I can share it with you guys. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it, make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Support us on Patreon if you can. And if you want to buy shirts, hats, t-shirts, things like that, make sure you go to thedirtlifestyle.com. On social media, I am at DirtLifestyleNate. We'll see you around.